And welcome to the High Octane broadcast. Don't know what my partner in crime over there is doing. Hi. My name is Zach Woods. Welcome back to a Friday Night Fuel production of the High Octane podcast. This is where we talk everything Friday Night Fuel. We'll sprinkle in a little bit of real life NASCAR here tonight. My name is Zach. Over here is my partner Ricky Gonzalez. Say hello to the internet, Ricky.
Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome to episode 5, Martinsville Madness. And Zach, we're going to talk about that track later on. I know you have some interesting track history on that, but yeah, everybody, we're tuned in. I'm glad to be here. It's been a kind of chaotic work week for me personally, and not be able to do certain segments in the show, and hopefully I can get that all wrapped up, and we can try to do it next week if I'm in town. So thinking about going out of town, not really sure yet. I'm still up in the air for work. Either going to one or two places. Not really sure. Going to see what market needs more attention over the other, and we'll determine here over the weekend if we actually do need to travel. So if we aren't able to travel, then yeah, we'll see the segment of Fast Laps with Ricky. But if not, then we'll debut it hopefully next week.
Yeah, thankful to have you here tonight, Ricky. It's awesome to be able to put on this show with you. And hey, if you don't do fast laps with Ricky, they might get slow laps with Zach. We'll see. So, taking a look here at the rundown tonight, we're going to go over Las Vegas together and talk about the race that was for these folks. See David Mayo out there in the comments. Good to have you here. Keep on chatting. We're going to talk a lot about NASCAR. I think that's going to garner a lot of chat conversation here later on. We're going to talk about the points update for Friday Night Fuel. We have a points graphic, and that means we can talk about who's winning the points. Big winner last week at Las Vegas. Sort of shakes things up in the points conversation. And we're going to discuss Rookie of the Year with Friday Night Fuel as well. It's a heated Rookie of the Year race. We're going to highlight some of those drivers here for you tonight. And then we're going to take a pit stop. We're going to talk about NASCAR and NASCAR champion Joey Logano and discuss, as everybody else is discussing, what NASCAR might or might not do for their point system moving forward. And then, of course, we always end with talking about Friday Night Fuel. They take on Martinsville. And if you thought our Halloween episode was scary, buckle up, Buttercup. We got a big one here at Martinsville on the horizon for Friday Night Fuel. With all that said, we're excited to give this to you, so let's get the show on the road and talk about the week that was at Las Vegas. We had an awesome race at Las Vegas. Talked about last time we were here on the show. Las Vegas is a track where many driver personalities come out to the racetrack, and we saw a little bit of everything. Drivers ripping the wall, drivers trying to get in clean air somewhere in the middle of the track, and then those folks that were stuck to the bottom and tried to conserve tires. It had a little bit of everything. We had 6 cautions, of course, one of those being the halfway point caution, and it provided many different drivers options for getting on pit road, making sure their strategies were all squared away, and it turned out to be a bit of a thriller there towards the end of this one. And ultimately, we have a top 5 for you tonight. Bryce Boyer getting the win at Las Vegas. Really cool to see him get the pole, be the dominant car, make sure that he took care of business. Had a late race caution, could have stolen that from him. But I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, he took 2 tires there on the last pit stop, hedged his bets, even though he's the first car down pit road, was able to make his way and be competitive there. Just for like a 3-lap sprint there at the end, holding guys off like Mark Gonzalez. I was in voice chat with Mark all race long. He had a really good car. It was good to see Mark up there dodging and weaving with guys up front. Marcus Chafin also as well getting that podium finish in 3rd. Spencer Teal 4th, and John Gutekunst rounds out your top 5 from Las Vegas. A lot of good stories to be found all throughout the field, Ricky. We have guys like Nathan Estep, who finished as 6th. We have Wade Burris, who we're going to talk about in a little bit. He gets a top 10. Just outside the top 10, you got David Mayo. A lot of these guys who are in need of good, solid runs. I see Bill Sleep finish 14th here. He had a really good short run car. He was electric at Las Vegas in the beginning of the run. just plenty of good storylines to be found. A race that had a little bit of everything, provided different strategies for drivers on a track where, yes, personalities really come out to shine. But I don't think between you and me, it's a big surprise that we see guys like Marcus and Bryce up there at the top of the podium.
Yeah, right. Those guys have been fast week in and week out, and have been fast throughout the season, right? So not shocked to hear those names at the top of the boards, and faces like Mark Gonzalez. I know he's trying to earn a little bit of respect in the league. I know that he's roughing some feathers and trying to he's door banged with a lot of people, and he's just trying to come out here now, and we've had that team talk. You know, everybody knows there's no secret. We're brothers, so it's a family thing, and so you sit them down and say, hey man, you got to start driving like cautiously now, because nobody's going to care if they're around you, and they're going to put you in the fence. So we had that talk. Hopefully, I didn't get a chance to see the broadcast. Zach had a lot going on last week when we were out of town, and I was talking to you a little bit and trying to see kind of how it played out, and we heard about the various strategies, people coming down to top off and all that other stuff, and Bryce taking 2 tires at the end. That's a fantastic call. Try to keep that track position, and eventually that still led him to victory lane. And just all the other stuff that goes on throughout a race, right? I don't know if you guys had green flag pit stops. How was the green flag stop coming in? Did anybody get any penalties and whatnot? But to see, I actually had a chance to look up the finish here, and to have 6 cautions at a mile and a half. We had the stage break, so in reality we had 5, right? So and for the most part, from what I'm hearing, is single car spins. Nobody really got into it with each other. I looked through the Discord. I didn't see any arguments that really happened throughout the race. So it looks like everybody was calm and collective. But as we come into this week, I feel like hopefully we don't have a repeat of Nashville Fairgrounds, and hopefully everybody can be calm, cool, and collective after this one as well, and we can still all be friends at the end of the day. And move on towards the end of our season. So yeah, it's really cool to see everybody, your normal names at the top. Marcus Chafin, John Gutekunst, Bryce Bohr was up there. I'm anxious. I didn't look up if Ryan. I don't think Ryan even made the race. So that prediction 0 for 1. And so you got something again over me, Zach. You got a championship, and now I'm 0 for 1, and you're 2 for 2. So yeah, we're batting 1,000 right now, guys.
Somebody's got to keep this thing up. So it was a really good race. It had a little bit of everything. Some drivers took advantage of the midpoint stage and managed to pit during that time. And this was a racer's race. And if you were in there, you really appreciated what was going on in terms of driver strategy. Towards the end of the race, there was a lot of questions over whether these drivers were able to save fuel during the end of this one. They had to stretch. It was about a 4 or 5 lap gap between their last tentative pit stop and the end of the race. And so you had guys that were ripping the fence that didn't care about fuel mileage. They were going to go down pit road with about 3 or 4 laps to go and top off and just rip it and see what happens. And then you had guys that pitted right before that last caution turned into green flag, topped off. We've done that before as a team before, sort of hedging our bets there. Some guys in the back did that. Then you had folks in the middle who were very content on just making sure that they managed their fuel during the entire last run and wanted to make sure that their fuel mileage went a long way. In the middle of that stage, you had folks that said, I'm going to split this stage in half and go down, and eventually they get bit by a late race caution. And that's a gamble, right? Because you take 4 fresh tires, and now you're running the fastest laps on the racetrack trying to make up the gap in case if somebody goes in and tops off. You're hoping it stays green from there to the end, but with the late race caution, it changes everything, and folks are trying to scramble for different strategies. So this was really a racer's race. I loved being out there for Las Vegas. It's one of my favorite tracks, and oh man, that was so close. And I don't want to spend all of our time talking about me, but a lot of folks got lucky this past week, because if I were one, I would have been insufferable. And I definitely was in position to wind up sneaking a win out of Las Vegas last week, right before that last race, or that last caution that came out there towards the end.
Yeah, me and you were able to chat just a little bit and kind of hear how your race went out. I think you messaged me that Friday and let me know kind of what was going on and how your race played out. And And it was cool. I've always known Las Vegas is a good track for you. If anybody can run the bottom of the racetrack at a place like this, it's the six car, and the driver of Zach Woods definitely can get it done. Just the way they manage the tires here. Zach's won a championship here, so I expected that six machine to be at the top of the board as well. And man, it's so devastating to hear that a late race caution is what bunched everybody back up together, and with all the strategies going on. And it would have been interesting to see, those guys come down pit 3 to go. I mean, how many gallons do you put in the car? Obviously, it's going to probably be 1.7 gallons, but I mean, how close were they? Did they have to take 3 gallons and spend that extra second on pit road? And now, as we know, as racers, me and and anybody watching, and any of the new viewers that are new to the racing and motorsports just in general, every second matters on pit road. We're going to talk about it later with the NASCAR Cup guys. The pit crews did their job for the championship floor, but in iRacing too, every second does matter. From the windshield tear-off button to how many gallons you're putting in. If it's 4 tires, I mean, you wanna spend the least amount of time on pit road because you want to keep that car towards the front. But yeah, man, I was devastated for you. I thought you had the winning strategy there, but unfortunately, your day will come, I believe. Once we get at once we get to a play track, I feel like we have some teammates that may help you out. I know your day's coming. You're getting better. I know you just got back behind the wheel, so your due diligence is coming. I know it. I know it's there. I know you have the speed. You have the talent. You've worked really hard from where we were a couple of years ago to where we are now. So I do believe one day you'll be able to win a race here at Friday Night Fuel, and I know that's another bold prediction. So I wish we were like inside the NBA. When they used to write stuff on sticky notes and slap it on the board, and then they go back and review it. We should have done something like that here. We write Ricky's predictions, slap it on the board, and then we circle back at the end of the year and say, yeah, you're an idiot on that one. Or, hey, man, you actually were a genius on this.
Whatever. The internet keeps track of everything. So we'll create a tally, I guess. But, yeah, I know for me personally, it would have been cool to get a win. I'm not racing for points. I don't meet the minimum race threshold, so I understand that. And I'm not racing for a championship here, although I would love to, because I know that I would have the opportunity to really dice it up with some of these really fast guys and make them think. That's all I want. I want to be in the conversation, make them think. And you mentioned the championship that I garnered from another league over at Las Vegas, and that was my whole thing. I was just happy to be there, and I wanted to make the people think that this guy could pull this thing off, and turned out a really, really good long run car, and managed to get the win. Not the win on the racetrack, but the win in the championship. And that was a crazy day. But anyway, you and I we know the behind the scenes of that day, so we are very thankful that we can have a league like this where folks can come in and scrap and really fight for points. I just didn't have a short run car at all, and see John's here in the chat, and I know John's really good at restarts. I got a reputation, Ricky, and unfortunately it's not the reputation of being a champion for spin move racing. It's being the king of terrible restarts, and everybody knows that. So that spelled certain doom for me. And when you're lined up behind or next to a guy like John, who is just electric on restarts, you sort of envy his talent, but you're gonna get just the doors blown off of you. And I think I restarted 4th or 5th, and then wound up 9th at the end of this thing. So restarts matter, pit stops matter, all that happens towards the end of this race. It sort of shuffles up some of the guys, but I like it at the end of the day. The really fast guy won, right? Bryce did a really, really good job, put an entire race together, and it was really hard catching him, and he knows how to race this racetrack, did everything he needed to do, snagged a win, and that's a great transition for us to talk about points and see what his win does for the points situation. I'm going to bring up the points here full screen for you guys. As you can see at the top of the charts, we do have Bryce here, and he does sit at the top of the charts. He's got 3 wins on the year, Ricky, and that's a big deal, because we talked about last week how these drivers with one win, now we talked about Bryce being two, how that sort of frees him up to be super aggressive and go get these wins here before the playoffs.
Yeah, right. And that's the game plan. That should be the motto for him. Just go chase checkered flags at this point, you know. And one of the things too that I've noticed is I see a flip. Now he's leading the points. And if you look at it, I mean John started out really good and he's been consistent. He's still right there with Bryce, but you know, they tied race 6. He got him in race 7 and got him again in race 8. And so that's the difference right now. Is those two races 7 and 8 where he's just outperforming John in the 41 machine. I'm going to go a little bit over. I'm not looking at the graphic that we have for everybody. I'm looking at a different graphic on a different screen. And so stage points too, man. That's a big column that I'm looking at too. You know, 47 to 55. Bryce has been able to capitalize on that. And then obviously the bonus points too. That's another thing I'm looking at. 23 to 11. So the 29 machine has definitely come on the last couple of weeks. And we're going to another short track where I believe we should see him at the top again. He won the first short track race of the year and the last one when we went to the fairgrounds. So I expect him to possibly extend that lead. I know John's going to be hungry to recapture the points lead and take control of that. But not far behind them is Marcus. You got Chafin and then you got Wes. I mean, Kirby Caputo's jumped up a spot. He's in the top 5. What a tremendous run and season he's had going on. Mark jumping up 4 after this race. And we won't talk about the guy in 7th. That's not important right now. And then seeing Brett Eastep, I mean, there's a lot of green that I'm seeing. There's some guys that I see in red that are starting to take a little dip because they have a lot of stuff going on personally where you can't make every single race, such as we did last week. I know Mutre had a family event that he was going to, and so you know this is a hobby at the end of the day. But you know I can see. Man, the top 10, top 11, man, you could throw Wade in there. I heard his name at the beginning of the show. You could throw him in there. I mean, those are the top 12 right now that are in points that will make the chase or the playoff, as you could say. But with Bryce keep winning, that's the question because then it opens up another point spot, and then it opens up another point spot for these guys to race in on points. And you know, if I'm John T. Garrett, Wade Burris, Mark Parkhurst, Gary Donaldson, Christopher Pendell, I want to see Bryce win. I want to see that 29 still in victory lane because then that gives me hope. Hey, I got a shot at making this thing when it comes down to the final race of the regular season.
Absolutely, and I was going to mention his name. Coincidentally, he also showed up in chat. I love racing around this guy, Spencer Teal. He knows how to do it well. He races hard. He races clean. Look at him. He's all the way down here in 18th position. But this guy, when he shows up to the racetrack, he's got race-winning speed, and that showed last week at Las Vegas. And he and we were duking it out there towards the end. I mean, this guy could snag a win and jump from all the way from 18th all the way into the playoff picture. So a lot of ground to be made up still for drivers that are just on the outside that need to make their way in. So you don't have to depend on points. You can snag a win depending on, well, what racetrack and what race discipline's coming up. It doesn't take Einstein to figure out the point system for our rookies, but we called him in anyway. So Einstein here is going to show us who the Season 2 rookie class is all about, and we are going to be taking a look at the rookie race for the Rookie of the Year. I want to focus on these guys who are really duking it out here. We got Gary Donaldson, who's sitting right there in 14th in points. We have Jim Oot, who's 17th in points. And then Chris Pendell, you got to boogie up the chart to go and find his name. He's 15th in points. And then Wade Burris is the guy that's holding the flag for the rookie class right now. He is 12th. Those drivers there on that side of the screen are really carrying the banner for the rookie class. We have a tight points race for the Rookie of the Year. And it could be that playoff threshold that determines who the Rookie of the Year is for Friday Night Fuel.
Yeah, and I know you went through that whole list of seeing where those guys are in the point standings, but I want to focus in on one driver, and I think he's getting better each week as he's getting comfortable with this next-gen car. That's going to be the driver in 12th. That's Wade Burris. Wade has a dirt track background. I've had a chance to talk to him in another Discord server. And he's just using this to to gain experience on asphalt and to see the consistency of how he's getting better week in and week out. And I know Einstein's on the screen right now, but I mean, it's getting better. I mean, it's each week has gone. I mean, we had race 6 where he gathered 24 points, but other than that, from race 1 to race 8, it's drastic. 16, 22, 25, 28. Like, it's getting better. 35. Then he had a dip at 24, race 6. Race 7, 30. Race 8, 37. So the 98 car, he's gaining confidence. He's getting comfortable with the car, no matter what track we're going to. And so I want to highlight that. Wade has done a phenomenal job, in my opinion, of getting better each week. And I know every week it can be anything can happen, right? Like I said, race 6, he had the slip up. But to see that 98 machine getting better as the season goes on, that's what I enjoy about iRacing. That's what I enjoy about helping others and getting them better as the season goes on. So to see Wade lead this Rookie of the Year standings and possibly clinch himself into the playoff, I think that would give him so much confidence going in that, yes, I did win Rookie of the Year, and if I'm in the chase, then yeah, I'm locking that sucker up, and there's no doubt about it. I know Wade is determined to try to be that Rookie of the Year, and hopefully we can see that 98 machine take home the trophy when it's all said and done.
One of the cool things that we need to take a look at when it comes to Wade, though, is on the very edge of the screen, you can see the stage points. I know, personally speaking from experience, one of the harder things to do as a racer now in these stage format races is to change your mindset. Some of these guys want to just make it to the end and be able to have a good finish out of the day. You cannot do that anymore. You have to be aggressive, especially at the midpoint of this race where stage points are rewarded. You take a look at Wade's column, you see all the way over there at the very edge of the screen, he has 7 stage points. So I'm anxious to see that number sort of balloon as he becomes not just aggressive at the end of these races, but during the midway point as well, where you get some valuable points to set yourself up for a deep playoff run.
Right, and I know we've talked about this multiple times, but our league's different. You don't see the normal 2 stages, and so Wade does have to capitalize on that. That number does have to go up if he's looking to, A, win Rookie of the Year, and B, clinch his spot into the playoff. And then I'm looking at bonus points. That has to go up a little bit too, and I know it's going to be difficult when you have so much talent and parity in this league, but he's going to have to find a way to, A, lead a lap. I know he's not focused probably on leading the most laps or even probably laying down a fast lap, but he has to find a way to lead a lap during a race. Whether he stays out on a caution and just bites the bullet. This is a great opportunity at Martinsville where we know there's going to be a lot of cautions. We saw it at Fairgrounds. There's going to be a lot of cautions. We know that. Does he stay out just to lead a point? And does he take that 40-second hold? That's the hard part for me, Zach, is – man, Martinsville, you can go a lap down like that in the pits, and especially if you want to stay out, lead a lap, and then come down and serve that penalty, you're basically going a lap down with how short this track is, right? Now, if it's a place like Talladega, I'm probably coming in because those guys are probably going to be midway down the back straightaway by the time you serve that penalty, but that's the question. That's the mind game he has to play. When do I stay out so I can lead a lap, or do I just risk it and follow the leader and I don't get bonus points. So those are some factors that and storylines that we're gonna see play out as we get closer and closer to. I believe the cutoff race is Darlington. I could be wrong on that though. So it's gonna be close with these guys. You know, Wade is 205, and then the person behind him is 194. So I mean anything could happen with what's going on.
Yeah, and we got here in the chat, Bryce, he's giving everybody hope. He's taken off a week this week. So happy birthday, Bryce. We hope you enjoy your time away. But from us to you as the points graphic goes away, thank you for giving us a chance for some glory at Martinsville. All right, wrapping up the points, we turn our attention now to the pit stop. This is the segment in which we take a break from Friday Night Fuel. We refuel based on topics that might be happening around the motorsports world, and we give our opinion over what is going on in real life motorsport. Certainly not for lacking of conversation, but we're going to throw our hats in the ring and see if we say anything intelligent about what has happened in the NASCAR championship race at Phoenix this past week. Phoenix hosts a one winner take all out of the 4 drivers vying for points championship format system. And Penske's got this on lock as they go 3-time with a new champion. Joey Logano is now the NASCAR Cup champion. Because of this points format, he was able to win the races that count, make his way into the Final Four, and eventually secure the championship at Phoenix by winning their last race of the season. So we're going to throw our hats in the ring here. We're going to talk a little bit about real life Phoenix, real life NASCAR, and see if we can wind up commenting on the state of the sport. This is a highly contested conversation, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of you in the comments with a lot of intelligent decision making when it comes to what NASCAR should do next. So if you throw anything out there worthwhile, we'll send your conversations up to NASCAR. We'll see if they got anything to say about what you have to say in the comments. So, Ricky, new champion, Joey Logano. He has 6 DNFs on the season, has the 16th average place finish in the field. He averages about an 18th place finish throughout the entire season, but he wins the races that count, and he's able to walk away as champion. What are your opinions of Joey Logano being the new NASCAR champion? And he joins an elite group, 3-time champion.
Yeah, I mean, hey, the cards are dealt by NASCAR and everybody knows the past 10, 11 years, this has been the format. And so when the format's thrown, everybody knows what the rules are. And so he just played the rules to his strength and got it done at the end of the day. So luckily for him, he had a spot already clinched when they went to Las Vegas. But I'm going to backtrack a little bit, and I'm sure you're going to bring this up probably. Is he a legitimate champion from Sunday, right? So, again, I've had multiple conversations already with people, not only me and you, but other people. And I'm going to throw his name in the ring as well. And you probably know where I'm going with this. Logano's not in it if it's not for my favorite driver. And everybody knows if you're watching in the comments, it's Alex Bowman. If Alex Bowman makes weight at the end of the Roval, Joey Logano's not in. And so if I'm Joey, I'm sending the biggest Christmas present to the 48 team and Hendrick Motorsports for saying thank you for not making weight. But, hey, we didn't make weight. As I say we, like I'm on the team. They didn't make weight. It is what it is. And so Joey gets himself back in, does what he does at Las Vegas, clinches a spot at Phoenix, and he just rose to the occasion. In my opinion, I thought Ryan Blaney had the fastest car all day. And just – he got stuck on a restart. I think Joey went from 5th to 1st, and then Blaney's still stuck battling with Kyle Larson, and then he has to get – I don't know, Larson's going to race him hard just because I know who's in front of Larson. That's his teammate, William Byron. And so I believe, a little bit kind of burned his stuff up. And then also the next-gen car so aero-dependent. I saw Ryan get within 4/10, maybe 3/10, and it's not the same race car. It got super tight, couldn't do anything. Joey just put the car where Ryan was, and that's all she wrote. Joey's able to ride off into the sunset, and yeah, we're crowning him a new champion, and now he's a 3-time champion. So I saw Joey did an interview and said, like, hey, the format is what it is, and everybody knows this going into Daytona at the beginning of the year. So, again, they played their cards. They did it right. They got in, won it. And so I know that's caused a lot of commotion when it comes to, do we reformat this? As a guy that wins the championship and has the worst stats of all the champions for the season, and a guy like Kyle Larson who probably wins the championship if it's a regular format that like we had back in the day, wins 6 races, led the league in top 5s.
He doesn't. Isn't this crazy? So he doesn't win the championship.
Yeah.
So if it's an old Winston Cup Series point system, it actually goes to Christopher Bell. He beats Chase Elliott by 5 points in the championship. So again, and I think this piggybacks on what we're trying to get at as fans, and what we're trying to talk about here. In an era where winning matters
Yeah.
now more than ever, on one hand, with Joey Logano timing his wins right, and yet seemingly winning doesn't matter at all because Kyle Larson wins the most races in the year. Heck, Kevin Harvick, he won 10 races one year and didn't make it to the championship for. And yet none of that matters in the old point system. In the old point system, consistency matters, average finish matters. And you have Chase Elliott, who has the highest average finishing average in NASCAR this past year, comes short of a championship. Let me tell you, as a NASCAR fan, when I saw that when I saw that graphic of Chase Elliott coming 5 points short, I was very grateful that we are not under the old points format, because I used to be a Mark Martin fan, and I don't think my heart could have handled another disappointment that close. But that's as Mark Martin as you get, consistent all year. But at least in the old Winston format, right? Bell has consistency, not as good as Chase, but it gets him in the conversation. And then what outdoes Chase is his wins. He wins more than Chase. And so Kyle, he was very feast or famine this year. It was, he won a lot, but he wasn't as consistent. And so at least the old points format had a healthy balance of both, where this format, you don't really know what you're rooting for, because Joey Logano, yeah, wins matter. He times his wins very well, but it's not the ultimate thing, because if wins actually did matter, Kyle Larson would be in the Final Four. So we got to find this line of where both of those things matter at the same time throughout the season.
Yeah, and I know what NASCAR is trying to do. They're trying to do a Game 7 situation and just try to make excitement and entertainment. But the one year that it does go wrong, it went wrong. And, you know, we talked about it last week, Zach. You can kind of flip your round of 8 with the 4 drivers who didn't make it and the 4 drivers who did make it. And everybody would probably agree with me in the chat saying the 4 who did make it probably are the 4 that should have been eliminated, and the 4 who are eliminated probably should have been the 4 that were racing for the championship, right? So NASCAR has some work. If I'm NASCAR, you got to listen to the fans. And I know at the end of the day, sometimes they don't do that, but if the fans want change, you got to realize too, the fans are what coming to the racetrack, buying the merchandise. That's what makes the sport. And we saw it back in the late 90s when Earnhardt started having merch coming out, merch trailers. Jeff Gordon did it. You know, there was either 3 hats or 24 hats. We saw it. I mean, that was another game changer for the sport when you're bringing in revenue. And so I believe they got to make a change. They have to. There's something that they got to do to make this, to reward the consistency, to reward guys winning races, right? So, you know, I was listening to Denny Hamlin the other day, and he had an interesting take where kind of do what we do. And I'm not saying NASCAR's stealing with what Friday Night Fuel is doing, but make your playoff. That's fine. But do it each round and do 3 races. And I know here we do that. You have your top 12. We'll knock out those after 3. We'll knock out another after 3. And then instead of having a Game 7 type situation, we have another round. And so now you have to show up to the racetrack. You know, and I know we do this as a hobby, but if you're in the playoff and you're one of those 4 that are racing for a championship, you better show up for those 3 races. If not, you're behind the 8 ball, because if you miss, you're probably not going to be our champion.
Yep.
And so I believe NASCAR can do that. And another suggestion, I read this on Twitter, and you're gonna laugh at me. And yes, Chad, I still do call it Twitter, but is everybody shows up to Daytona, everybody's in the playoff, and after the end of the 36th race, they crown a champion. So that's another suggestion. They go back to the old format and just it is what it is. So and I was able to go through that thread and see kind of, you know, champions that were already crowned prior to the season finale, and the grandstands were full. And I get it, you know, inflation, going to the racetrack, tickets are crazy high, especially if you want a good seat. I get all that. Some tracks you have to pay for parking. Luckily for me here at Texas Motor Speedway, we don't have to do that. Or COTA, we don't have to pay for parking. But I know other tracks do that, where you do have to pay for the parking. So now you're paying for parking, your ticket into the grandstand, not to mention if you go to the concession stands, the merch trailers. Like, you're spending a lot of money at these places and at these facilities. But if I'm NASCAR, I'm gonna go back to this. If I'm NASCAR, you got to make a change, and hopefully we see a change by the start of 2025. And I know they're talking about 2026. I've heard a rumor
Yep.
2026 is possibly the earliest they're gonna do a change.
A
But
big one.
if if
Yeah.
if I'm them, I make a slight change here, and then, like you said, Zach, the big change needs to come for 26, and see what we can do as far as revamping this whole thing.
Yeah, looking at Wade here in the comments, he says, I don't see the controversy. He was barely edged out and was next in line when Bowman got DQ'd. I think in Bowman's regimen for in the offseason, he needs to eat a lot of pasta and make sure that he's bulking up on weight in order to make weight for the next season. He won the very next race to move on, and I really don't even like the guy. Yeah, and that's the thing about Joey Logano and this being a championship year for him. You can't argue that he didn't abide by the format. It just, he got a very lucky break from somebody who didn't make weight, and then he proceeded to do the thing that Joey Logano does in even number years, which is just winning the right races and making sure you get to Phoenix, because Penske's got a stranglehold on Phoenix. Jeff Gordon was interviewed after the race. He said, we were preparing our setups and chassis for Phoenix back in Daytona, and they just don't have what Penske has at this racetrack. And until then, Penske's always going to be the favorite when they come down to Phoenix in this one race format to determine a champion. And we'll see what that means for NASCAR next year. But I think that's our 2 cents here on the points conversation. I don't care for Joey Logano, but at the end of the day, he did what he was asked to do, and you can't hate him for that. We're never going to have another driver in motorsports do what Jimmy Johnson did, and that is ripping off 7 championships under different playoff, non-playoff formats. I mean, the NASCAR made different styles of points to prevent Jimmy Johnson from winning more championships, and he did it anyway. And you're just not going to have that in this era of motorsports, especially with this race car that is a spec car across all different teams, and they're all getting the same parts, and everything is, well, even, and there's more parity now than there ever was before. So to have repeat champions, to change formats and expect your favorite driver to be as good as they were in this era, that's just not going to be the case. Jimmy Johnsons don't grow on trees, and now we're in an era of NASCAR where winning at the right time matters, and Joey Logano is really, really good at that format. And who knows, if NASCAR changes their format, he could very well struggle going into whatever NASCAR's got in store for next season. So I think that was a good enough pit stop, Ricky. I think we finally got one. We got a pit stop that didn't take forever. So excited to hear from you guys in the comments. Thank you for chiming on in for a pit stop. But we're all fueled up. We're ready to go. So we're going to leave the pit box now and go running towards Martinsville. Listen, this track is going to be difficult. It's not titled Martinsville Madness for nothing. When it comes to iRacing, these challenging short tracks are just that, a place of chaos and calamity where tempers flare and fenders get bent. And yet we keep coming back here. The reason being is because these tracks are filled with history and glory is to be found. And if you can tame these short tracks on the iRacing server, you are considered a real racer. And there's an opportunity to be found this week for Friday Night Fuel. Who's going to keep their car clean and put it all together at this race? I'm excited to talk to you about Martinsville Speedway. Martinsville Speedway, of course, is in Ridgeway, Virginia, which is just south of the town in Martinsville. Of course, this is where the history all starts out. The track was also one of the first paved oval tracks in stock car racing. In fact, the track of Martinsville existed 1 year before NASCAR came into being. This track anticipated motorsports coming to the United States in a big, big way in 1947. They were able to build a conglomerate of track owners and construct a racetrack that is has had a couple nicknames throughout its history. In the beginning of its life, it used to be called the Half Mile of Mayhem. Yes, I think they should keep that name because it always proves to be a little chaotic here. But now, fondly, it's called the Paperclip. These drivers boogie around this racetrack. It's 5.26 miles, and it is the shortest track in the NASCAR Cup Series. Well, before we wound up doing the Clash in some stadium somewhere, but we don't do that anymore, and we won't talk about it. So, so this track got built, right? And you might be wondering, what did it look like in the early days of NASCAR? Did they get it? Did they understand that this short, challenging paperclip style racetrack was going to be suitable for stock car racing? Well, look no further than the first time they came here. The first sanctioned event was held in 1948, but then eventually more points races were held here. The NASCAR schedule was very fluid back then. Drivers going to racetracks where owners were happy to get the free publicity from a major sporting event coming into their town. Well, 1951 rolled around and Martinsville found its way on the schedule, and the fans were treated to, well, a race that kind of looks like iRacing. In 1951, only 4 cars were running at the finish of that race, the fewest of any race ever held at that speedway or any NASCAR sanctioned event since then. Yes, 4 drivers limping around the racetrack. In 1960, Richard Petty became the youngest winner at Martinsville at just a shade under 23 years old. And, of course, Petty is the king at Martinsville with 15 wins. Harry Gant became the oldest winner at the time in NASCAR and at the time the oldest winner in Martinsville history at 51 years and 255 days. It was Gant's 4th consecutive win at the Paperclip. Ownership has changed hands over time, eventually landing Martinsville into NASCAR's domain of their many ownership partners of racetracks all throughout North America. And since then, NASCAR has opened up the floodgates for competition at Martinsville, from the Whelen Modified Series all the way up to the Cup Series. Many modified races are held here, and drivers cut their teeth at that level, trying to see if they can make it to the big time. One of the more popular ones that race today are Ryan Preece and a driver who used to have a storied career in the Whelen Modified Series. Used to be Ryan Newman and found his success over at Martinsville as well. And in fact, in retirement, Newman still enjoys the Whelen Modified Series coming over to Martinsville. A couple traditions about this racetrack that our fans need to be made known of. Well, there's really only 2 that can be found here. Of course, these drivers in real life race for the glory of the grandfather clock. It is a tradition that is held all the way through the Whelen Modified Series, to the Truck Series, to the Xfinity Series, and the Cup Series. It's a nod to Martinsville's famous furniture industry. It used to be big back in the day. They had a local partnership with a clockmaker down the road, and since then, the grandfather clock has been the trophy held at Martinsville. That tradition started in 1964 and has held weight to this day. Another tradition that can be found at Martinsville, of course, are the hot dogs. It's a notable part of the fan experience here. They have graphics every time you tune into a NASCAR race, how many times you can wrap the Martinsville racetrack around in hot dogs on a given weekend, and drivers line up all the way through the pits in order to snag Martinsville's famous hot dogs. As iRacers, we don't get to enjoy those traditions, but we take part in the history that comes with Martinsville and the glory associated with taming this racetrack. Ricky, what are your keys to victory when it comes to taming the Paperclip?
Man, so I know we talk a lot about tires. I don't know if that's gonna be a key, and hopefully I'm wrong. I just think the guy who has the cleanest race car at the end is gonna win this race. I was in the back at Fairgrounds. I was in the chaos. I don't want to be back there ever again. I don't like it. I don't want to be a part of it. Leave me out. I want to be up front. I want to be able to just, maintain a clean race, especially, and I know other drivers probably feel the same way, but I do believe the guys who have the cleanest race car, and you're gonna have to stay up front the entirety if you want a clean race car. You're gonna have to keep your track position. I don't think we'll have green flag pit stops this place. If we do, you better hope you pit at the right time and a caution does not come out, because you're gonna go laps down in a matter of seconds. So you just got to play this track card right, and you got to have a perfect race if you want to. Now, I do believe other people can get caught up in some other stuff, and we talked about the points, we talked about the Rookie of the Year, Bryce not being there now, so that's gonna open this thing up with a can of worms. So I think those are gonna probably be the keys. And then if you do come down, when do you take your tires? Do you take them every single time? I don't know what John has planned as far as sets go. I know him, and Teal have been chatting about the setup and stuff. I haven't had an opportunity to actually read some of that stuff and see what it looks like, and I haven't even tested the set. I don't even know. I'm going in there as a blind duck. So I'm not going to lie to you, Zach. I'm not excited about this race. I hate this racetrack. I pulled a West Fuller card. I hate this place. I can't stand it. And I'm blaming John Kudakunst for slapping this thing on the schedule. And so if you get the boot going into 3 or 1, it's not personal. It's just business. So
I'm really good at those.
Joking. I'm just joking.
Especially with
joking.
John. That's my thing. So
hopefully the guy who wins the race is clean, and the guys who are on the podium have a clean race. That's all you can ask for. And hopefully guys do have some misfortunes and burn that fast repair quickly, and then they get caught up in something else, and hopefully their day's done. But yeah, that's for me. I believe those are going to be the keys to the race here at Martinsville.
Tires, car management, maybe temper management are your keys to victory here at Martinsville. And we've now reached the part of the show that I'm sure we're all excited for. It's a little bit weird now that I'm actually racing in the league now, but I'm gonna somebody's got to do it. So here I am, and Ricky proved last week he can't. So I'm gonna make a prediction here for Martinsville. And you mentioned him, and I knew who I was going to pick before tonight's broadcast. He's in the chat tonight. It's going to be John Kudakunst, and I think he is really, really good. Let's put it this way: he knows how to modulate a brake well, and he's really aggressive when it comes to managing these tight corners at these challenging racetracks we wind up going to. And I'm excited to see what John can do, given that we had 21 cars right last week, and this is going to be a fuller field for us here at Martinsville. I think John is the perfect balance of patience and aggressiveness, and you're going to need that for this track. And he knows when to flip the switch and be aggressive, and he also knows when to sort of just chill. So I've watched John race short tracks before. I think that this is going to be a race where perhaps he's not the one up front dominating, but he'll be there at the end. Unless if he's caught up in somebody else's stuff. This is really a wild card. It's madness here at Martinsville, and I'm excited to see who winds up being at the front at the end. This track could certainly produce some awesome storylines. You got some folks that are just begging for points. There's going to be points to be found at this thing, and if you can keep your car clean, you can really snag a lot of them at the midway point and at the end of this race.
Yeah, you nailed it. You had like your driver picked, and you gave us facts of why that guy's going to win, and I love that. I love that you come in doing your homework, and this is why I'm picking this guy, and this is why I picked that guy. So another solid pick. You can't go wrong with that. Hopefully it does not happen, because I don't want that to happen. No, again, nothing personal, just business. So hopefully, again, solid pick. Hopefully John can get it done tomorrow night. But I know there's some other guys in this league that have a little say-so. And I know when we make these picks, Zach, whether it's me or you doing the pick, depending on who's racing and whatnot. I know you're racing again, so I mean, kudos to you for trying to pick a winner, even though you're in the field. And it's hard not to pick yourself sometimes.
Oh, I'm never picking me. We don't have to worry about that. I'd rather be right than be selfish. So,
but I'm glad some of the drivers, they take this stuff personally. And when we don't pick them, I'm anxious to see which drivers kind of step out of that eggshell and say, all right, Zach, I'm about to show you what I'm all about. And hopefully they use this as motivation to kind of get their car towards the front of the field.
Yeah, it'll be really exciting, and we are honored to recap Martinsville for you next week. But The road trip is over. We've done a good job in being all fueled up and ready to go for an awesome week at Martinsville. We did our homework for this track. We talked about the week that was at Las Vegas. We also sprinkled in some real life conversation with NASCAR and were able to put on a good show for you. And that is the highest honor here, to be able to have an audience that's willing to engage us in chat. We thank you so much for your views. Invite your friends, invite your mamas. We want to be able to talk to y'all all in the chat and have an opportunity to engage a broader community when it comes to Friday Night Fuel. This league is doing some great things, and we want to make sure that the name of this league is made known far and wide. So this is just one more outlet we can do that for you, and we're honored to present this show before you. You're all fueled up and ready to go, and so my name is Zach Woods, and for my partner Ricky Gonzalez, we hope you tune in to Snake Bitten Gaming. If you're not racing, and if you are racing, bring your A game for a Friday of madness